Ambazonians. Good evening, the great people of Ambazonia. I am your brother, your friend, and your spokesman, Lucas Asu of the Ambazonia Governing Council. The American president, John F. Kennedy, said, don't ask what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country. For the Ambazonian people, do not ask what the world can do for Ambazonia. Ask what can Ambazonia offer the world. The world has expectations for the Ambazonian people. The world has certain standards and expectations as to how liberation struggles and people clamoring for freedom, how they should conduct themselves, what they should do. Because that defines and determines the seriousness of the people from what they are escaping from. The Ambazonian people are clamoring for freedom, for independence, and for a sovereign state. That's what our people are fighting for. But how are we conducting ourselves? Is the way we conduct ourselves reflect the aspirations of our people? Is the way we are conducting ourselves reflect the hopes, the dreams, the wishes of our people? These are critical questions we must ask ourselves. What are international standards and what are international expectations for liberation movements? Ambazonia can defeat Cameroon. Ambazonia will not recognize itself. For Ambazonia to be a member of the international community, it must live up to certain obligations and certain expectations. For states to mobilize their people and their parliaments to give recognition to Ambazonia, it means there are certain expectations, certain standards we have fulfilled. So the question that we all have to ask ourselves, are we just fighting to defeat Cameroon? Yes, that's the primary focus. The primary focus is to dismantle the Cameroon occupational infrastructure, defeat Cameroon. That is the priority. In the process of doing that, there are expectations the world has. There are rules as to how these things are done. And so we must be able to differentiate ourselves and give the world reasons as to why they must trust us, as to why they must trust Ambazonia, as to why they should support Ambazonia. That is the responsibility of the Ambazonian people, and not the responsibility of the international community. But in order to fulfill and live up to those standards and expectations, you must know what those standards and expectations are. Over the last 7 years, the Cameroon colonial state, Paul Biya, and the Cameroon military, the Cameroon colonial authorities within the Ambazonian state, they have demonstrated a level of barbarism, a level of cruelty, they have committed human rights abuses that are beyond human understanding. They have committed atrocities that the world hasn't seen. As a result, the world has caged Cameroon, labeled Cameroon. In some instances, they have called Cameroon a terrorist state, a barbaric state. They have labeled the bees as a military that has committed the worst human rights abuses or crimes against humanity. Cameroon is in the dark books of the world. Many companies, many nations don't want to associate themselves with Cameroon, don't want to do business with Cameroon. The world is punishing Cameroon for its atrocities and crimes against the Ambazonian people. Because Cameroon has failed to live up to the expectation and the standard on how these processes, on how a war is conducted. What about Ambazonia? The first problem that Ambazonian has shown the world as an alarming sign is the disorganization of the forces. Many forces on the ground are loose groups. That is very troublesome. That is very troubling. And that is very concerning to the international system. Many forces are not under any direct political organization, and therefore there's no command and control. How do you regulate the conduct of forces that are loose? And there are many small groups on the ground without any command and control, without any oversight. That is very concerning. And in most international reports, we have seen it being reflected as an international concern. And that is something the Ambazonian people have to address quickly and urgently. I would also like to state that all 5 interim governments within the Ambazonian liberation struggle have all collapsed. The interim government of Ayok Tabe and Yerima has collapsed. The interim government of Samuel Sako Ekome has collapsed. The interim government of Chris Anu has collapsed. The interim government of Marianata has collapsed. The interim government of Tita no longer exists. That is also a concern for the international community. The Ambazonian Governing Council is the only true liberation movement. It's the only true nationalist liberation movement that is left within the Ambazonian political space. This is not my assessment. This is the assessment of the World Bank, the assessment of Stanford University, the assessment of Oxford University, all international organizations, even the Canadian assessment. In the recent report from Ottawa by the Hill Times, a news outlet in Ottawa, Canada, they also alluded to this fact. On the ground, the Ambazonian Governing Council, the way it has structured itself, both on the ground and in the diaspora, and the way it has conducted itself, and the kind of leadership it has projected to the world, has gained the trust of the world to be the anchor of stability within the Ambazonian liberation struggle. Without the Ambazonian Governing Council, there is no Ambazonian liberation. Without the Ambazonian Governing Council, there is no Ambazonian liberation struggle, because most movements have all collapsed and they have no central role. They have no more skin in the liberation space of Ambazonia. Their only interest and what is left of them is just politics, opportunity, and popularity. It's nothing else. They have no skin in the liberation space, or what they call, they have no skin in the game. As a result, most of them have become spoilers or internal opponents or internal agitators. For 7 years, they've not offered anything to the Ambazonian people. So what is left for the Ambazonian people? What is left is what has stood the test of time. What is left is what is what was, is what has offered the Ambazonian people a clear vision for the liberation, a mission for the liberation, a roadmap for the liberation, a set of scientific actions for the liberation. That is what is left. What is left is the Ambazonian Governing Council. The leadership that Dr. Cho Lucas Ayaba and Dr. Nyi have offered the Ambazonian people is the finest we have seen in 60 years of our existence. The most structured, the most visionary, the hardest working movement, the most pragmatic, with an exclusive focus to alleviate the pain and the suffering of the people, with an exclusive focus to end Cameroon's tyranny, to end Cameroon's occupation, and to give the Ambazonian people a free homeland. The Ambazonian Governing Council is the anchor of hope of what the world expects from the Ambazonian people. Let us examine this together. From the beginning, Dr. Cho Lucas Ayaba gave the Ambazonian people a clear roadmap with specific set of actions about what the Ambazonian people should do and what they must do in order to be free. The AGOC has not deviated from that plan. They have refined that plan. They have refined that roadmap. They have refined their set of strategies and adapted into the current realities. But the blueprint of the liberation is still intact. And that's what Dr. Cho is still focusing on. Secondly, the Ambazonian Governing Council did not just offer the Ambazonian people a liberation map. They created a defense force with a command and control under a direct political leadership. This is critical. This is essential. This is significant and important in order to meet the expectations of the world. Because forces on the ground, armed groups on the ground, without political oversight, without accountability, without command and control, leads to chaos. Women and children will pay the price for uncontrolled armed groups, for armed groups without oversight and accountability. Crimes will be committed against women, against children, and against communities. So, Dr. Cho's vision to have created the ADF is to respond, to meet up with the expectations and the standards of the international system. That the conduct, the actions, and the behaviors of forces will be regulated and sanctioned. The conduct, the forces, the conduct, the actions, and the behavior of all ADF forces are regulated by the Ambazonian Governing Council, are regulated through a strict command and control that is within the system. And that's why the Governing Council has gained the trust of the international system. That's why Dr. Cho Lucas Ayaba has gained the confidence of the international system, because it's the only way to avoid atrocities on the population, extortion of the population, abuse of the population, and the abuse of power. There are certain fundamental things that Dr. Cho has addressed in his message to the Ambazonian people today. Let's take a look. Number one, that the Ambazonian forces have extensive outreach. They exercise both physical and psychological control of most of the activities within the Ambazonian territory. That's the first thing. Ambazonian forces decides to most extent what happens on the ground. How the ground is, the activities on the ground. It even dictates the activities of the colonial state. He also pointed out that the power of our forces has increased, while the power over the enemy forces and their activities have been weakened in the periphery. But our core defenses remain strong, and some areas have become even stronger. Dr. Cho said, more weapons will increase the strength and drive penetration. More weapons will bring respectability and increase recruitment for Ambazonian forces. More weapons will ensure policing and consequently reduce public crimes. How do you get more weapons? It requires an instant, massive funding, and two, the liberation tax is the best tool to give more weapons to structured forces. Number two, the war economy. As forces increase their capacity and their strength and their outreach, that brings us to the war economy. That means forces will also have access to natural resources and to raw materials. This is something that is very concerning to the world, and therefore, if forces are not structured, if forces do not have a command and control and are not under political leadership with a political oversight, these forces with access to natural resources and raw materials, they will tend to exploit the war economy not for the purpose to self-deliberation, but for their own selfish and personal interest. This can lead to severe consequences on the population, can lead to factionalization, can lead to massive infighting, where forces will be more interested in the control of resources, the exploitation of those resources for financial gains for themselves and for their faction than to serve the purpose for which the people rose up for. In order for us to overcome this problem, the Ambazonian Governing Council has created ADLA. The Ambazonian Governing Council always anticipates problems and creates solutions in advance. We are always very proactive. The Ambazonian Transitional Liberation Authority was created as a means to mitigate, to bridge the gap between the forces and the population, to bring the forces and the population to work together to resolve community problems, to resolve conflicts, and for the proper management of local resources. Secondly, Ambazonian Transitional Liberation Authority is also aimed at helping the forces during this transitional liberation period to work with community authorities to maintain cohesion, to guarantee peace and stability within communities, to identify developmental projects that will enhance the living conditions of the Ambazonian people within their localities, such as community schools, community health clinics, community roads, the improvement of community to town roads, the improvement of the local economy, improvement of markets, creating access for local produce to be transported to the cities so that farmers can earn money for their hard work. The settling of problems within communities is also one of the factors. How do we bridge the gap between the community and the forces? How do we make them? How do we bring them together to work together and to create safe spaces where disputes can be settled? This is the foresight of the Ambazonian Governing Council. This is the vision to strengthen the bond between our communities and our forces and give and provide every community the opportunity to identify the potentials within those communities, solve community challenges, and enhance the lives of our people. We believe wherever the Ambazonian Defense Forces, by the way, the Ambazonian Defense Forces is the only defense group in Ambazonia that has presence in 9 out of the 13 states within Ambazonia. And all these defense groups within the 9 states are under one central command. So besides the creation of the Ambazonian Transitional Liberation Authority, the Ambazonian Governing Council has taken bold steps over the last few months to create a CENTCOM for the Ambazonian Defense Forces. The AGOFC has created a central command for all Ambazonian forces within the 9 states of Ambazonia. They have a central command where all the top ADF generals and commanders have a common workspace where they discuss, they share intelligence, they plan together, they provide leadership and accountability, provide training, provide education, provide constant inspiration, and solve problems that exist within units in order to maintain cohesion within the force. Secondly, that is the overall central command. Within the overall central command, the AGOFC has helped the central command to create state commands. Within each state, all the brigades have their own local central command. This is where the plan operations, the plan actions, the gather intelligence, share intelligence, inspire, educate the community, and execute liberation political policies. This is a great step forward. This is what the world expects from Ambazonia. And the AGOFC is a living proof of that. The AGOFC is 10 steps ahead of what the world expects from us. Because these structures and processes, what they do is, number one, to maintain cohesion, unity, and oneness within the AGOFC and within the Ambazonian Defense Forces. Secondly, it instilled discipline and help forces to live and operate within a certain guiding code of conduct. This is great for the Ambazonian people because you don't want Ambazonian forces to be as careless, as undisciplined, as barbaric as the Cameroon be, as the Cameroon gendarmes, as the Cameroon police, as the Cameroon military. That's not what you want. What you want, it's a force that's disciplined. When forces have misbehaved, they can be sanctioned, they can be disciplined, and they can be held accountable for their conduct. This is what you want. And this is what the AGOFC is offering the Ambazonian people and the way it conducts the Ambazonian liberation struggle, in the way that it meets international standards and it meets international expectations. This is good news for Ambazonia. Very, very good news for Ambazonia. Lastly, in Dr. Cho's message, there are two more things Dr. Cho pointed out today. Dr. Cho pointed out that the period of heroism is gradually giving way to realistic liberation approaches that are sustainable. He said this is a normal liberation war trajectory that is more noticeable due to social media era. To overcome the perceived loss of the sense of excitement about independence, our communication must be more practical. We must tell our people what they stand to gain at independence. We must address key policy issues that are important to our people. We must tell Ambazonians how we will address and provide solutions for education to our children, deal with issues of infrastructure, and give our people a sense of being citizen of a great state that is completely different from a country that is like a cartel. Example of Cameroon. Lastly, Dr. Cho pointed out today that the influence of the opportunist within the Ambazonian liberation struggle has all weakened. Most of them have disappeared into thin air. All their experiment to instrumentalize the liberation and the forces have not worked. He said in the liberation struggle, the only breakaway factions that succeed are those that adopt more radical measures at eliminating the threat to their survival. Ambazonia factions are the opposite. They break up simply to be relevant. They break up simply for short-term gains. They break up simply for opportunism. And they break up simply for positioning. If we must survive as movements, we must adopt nationalism. We must adopt nationalism. The focus must be the Ambazonian people, the well-being of the Ambazonian people, the welfare of the Ambazonian people, the freedom of the Ambazonian people, the protection of the Ambazonian people, the defense of the Ambazonian people, and what we do to enhance and increase the quality of life for an ordinary Ambazonian. That's what movements should be focusing on. That's what movements should be doing. That's what movements should be communicating. Movements should focus on inspiring, encouraging, empowering, and elevating the Ambazonian people. Movements should focus on Cameroon. Movements should focus on the destruction of Cameroon, on weakening Cameroon, on shaming Cameroon, on disgracing Cameroon. That's what nationalistic liberation movements do. Nationalistic movements that want independence for their people. They don't waste their time and energy making each other the enemy. That is what has crumbled all 5 IGs. I will talk about that. I'll talk more about that tomorrow, because it's a great topic for us all to discuss tomorrow. All right? It's something for us to discuss, because we all have to know this. What has killed all 5 IGs? It's a great topic. You will enjoy. It will also be very entertaining. But let's wrap this up. We're in a very good place. The future is bright. The road ahead is very clear. It's very exciting for the Ambazonian people, and especially for AGOVCs. The AGOVCs are the most passionate, are the most excited, are the most optimistic, are the most cheerful, because they walk on the truth. They stand on the truth. They believe on the truth. They live the truth. They follow the truth. Because what they are doing is working. That's why they're optimistic. That's why they are passionate. Because they see the results of their dedication, of their effort, of their energy, of their tenacity. Because they see the result of their efforts. When they contribute money, they see the result in terms of more weapons being provided to the forces, the strength of the forces, the growth of the forces, the increase in capacity and capabilities within the forces. They see. So that inspires them across the globe. So we encourage all Ambazonians to join the Ambazonia Governing Council. Don't be on the sideline because a movement you once supported is dead. It's all right. These things happen in life. You've been in relationships in your life, in your own personal lives. You've been in relationships where things came to an end. What did you do? You forged ahead. You sought for more meaningful relationships. You examined your own errors in the processes of how you made that selection. And then you gained wisdom, and you made better choices. So it's okay that in the past, you made certain decisions based on the interpretations and what you saw back then. But when conditions change, when things change, so too must you. Follow what works. Don't give up. Don't give up because you gave your money to Sako embezzled the money. Don't give up because the IG, Siseko, and Yerema did not live up to your expectations, and so your hopes have been dashed. Don't give up. Don't give up on Ambazonia. Those movements are not Ambazonia. Ambazonia is you and I. Ambazonia is the future. Ambazonian is all of us. The egg of sea is just a pragmatic vehicle for all of us to channel our resources, our actions, and our energies for our collective survival. Join the egg of sea. Be part of what works. As they say in Pidgin, follow man we no road. Any man want man we no road. Any person wants something we will walk, right? So fellow Ambazonians, we're there for a very good place. We're there for a very beautiful place. The strategy don't defeat La Republic du Cameroon. The war don't change. We don't go international. The one thing all we need for now, let's say all the 5 IG, they don't die. All 5 IG, they don't collapse. Not be that some person make the collapse. That the excessive, they make themselves make the collapse. Tomorrow I will take the time for spend 30 minutes for educate one now. Why all the 5 IG, they die? And what will be the lessons with other movement they will learn now. So, I know say some of now, when they feel discouraged, because say when I be think say a movement like Sako, the IG, Sako and Christian the IG, when I be support them, when I not be wrong, say when I be support them, but they not be fit for live up to your own expectations. Their disappointment not be a disappointment. You be only see them. I said it will help the liberation me move forward. But when they fail, make you not give up. Some of now donate plenty money. Una swear, say that the only thing that una stand on. But when things they change, you too need for change. When something they die, you need for follow what it work. So I want to call on every Ambazonian. Whether you be support na the Sako IG, or you be support na the Seseko IG, or you be support na the Cristiano IG, or you be support na the Maria IG, or you be support na the Tita IG. It no matter what you be support them in the past. If those things they need to live up to the expectation where you be get them for the liberation, then follow man we no road. The Ambazonian Governing Council over the last 7 years, it don't stand the test of time. Which he tell we say go do am, now we they do am. Which they don't do am, now we they still continue for do am. They never change the way we they day. The roadmap we they give, they still follow am. They don't fix that roadmap, make it fine, and make it adjust and adapt to the current reality we face on the ground. For this stage, with La Republique, we don't weaken La Republique, defeat La Republique for so many places for the territory. Our forces, they get a lot of power and then they determine what will happen on the ground. Now the time is for all Ambazonians, for which the egg of sea don't give we over the last 7 years. If you be an honest man, you be an honest woman, you be an honest papa, you be an honest mommy, there is no other movement where you go follow up if you want progress. Any person will want progress. And I know say you want progress. Papa knows say you want progress. Brother knows say you want progress. You want to make this liberation succeed. There is no Ambazonian way you want to make this liberation fail. So when certain things they don't fall, they fall along the road. They disappear along the road. We must follow which the experience it don't show them, which it don't stand the test of time. We must follow man we no road. Dr. Cho Lucas Ayaba, he give the Ambazonian people a vision, a roadmap, and action them where they will defeat La Republique du Cameroon. Every other movement, you don't try for copy them, but you know if you copy the original, because not that you create the original. The original and the original. Today, egg of sin and the hope of the Ambazonian people. Them. Today, the Ambazonian Governing Council, that the only thing we remain with the whole the Ambazonian liberation struggle together. That the only thing we remain with the whole the Ambazonian struggle together. All international reports From World Bank, their report. From Oxford University, their report. From Stanford University, their report. All report and the same story where they tell the Ambazonian people them. Say the Ambazonian Governing Council are the most structured, are the most disciplined, are the most focused liberation movement. And as Jeune Afrique, they talk 1 month ago, say the Ambazonian Governing Council and Dr. Cho Lucas Ayaba, na la République du Cameroon #1 public enemy. Jeune Afrique, a francophone international newspaper, a French newspaper, which he talk. He talks about the Ambazonian Governing Council, Dr. Cho Lucas Ayaba, na #1 public enemy for Paul Biya, na #1 public enemy for Cameroon. Because now he start the armed resistance, which today it don't lead into the Ambazonian liberation struggle. And because of that, the Cameroon state and Paul Biya, the entire Cameroon state, they don't focus now for how they fit destroy the egg of sea and destroy Dr. Cho Lucas Ayaba in order for stop the liberation of Ambazonia. Now so Jeune Afrique, it talk. So for Ambazonian people then, for this time, La République is a very weak country. For we for defeat them completely, it be very easy. For we for destroy La République du Cameroon, it be very easy. But our actions, they must be disciplined. We must follow which the work. We not feel to do things very scatteredly, and we expect for achieve great things. Certain things they do with the world, they expect them from we, and then the things they do with egg of city do. There are certain standards they do with the world don't set them, and if we live up to those standards, it will be easy for the world to embrace we, welcome we, and recognize Ambazonia. That's why the egg of sea, it create the transition authority for make sure say forces and community they work together. For make sure say chaos in order for ground. For make sure say soldier them, they need to use their gun for abuse or mommy them, abuse or get picking them, abuse or picking them. The egg of sea, it create structures for make sure say even during periods of war, if we create community development, if we solve community problems. That the vision this, we not just live with people that say just because we fight war, community they don't get clinic. When woman be pregnant, you don't know place to go because war day. No, the egg of sea talks even during this period of war, community they must get clinics, or people they must go Ambazonia schools. We must develop community then and give up and create opportunity for our people then. We must make sure say the areas where Ambazonia they control them, it be very safe and it be very peaceful. We mommy the go farm, papa the go farm, nothing no worry them. Now what the world expect them from with this, and now what the egg of seed do. The second thing, we ADLA, the Transition Authority, now for make sure say community get development, make our people not remain backward. If communities they need bridge, the egg of sea, the forces and the community they will come together, they raise the money for build bridge for the community. If community need market, the egg of sea, the forces and the community they come together, they build market for the community. If Palava Day for community, the community or traditional authority and the forces them, now them they will constitute ADLA. ADLA now a process where the Ambazonian Governing Council, it won't give the Ambazonian people them self-government. say that we now will feel govern ourselves, because the whole reason for this liberation struggle now for kick Cameroon out and give the Ambazonian people the power, the authority, and the means for the Ambazonian people for take control of their lives, for take control of their destinies, for develop their communities, and for give our people them the kind of life where they need for living within their communities, so that progress go there for our community. The second thing with the aim of Sidon Cretan for solve the problem on the ground and for make sure so we live according to international standard and the expectation of the international community, and which they call as a central command. From the beginning of this year, Dr. Cho, he talked for the Ambazonian Governing Council leadership for come together and for bring the War Council and the leadership together for work for create a central command. The Ambazonian Defense Forces, the National Liberation Army, are the only force where it did for 9 out of the 13 states. The ADF are the only force where it got presence, it got brigades, barracks, units for 9 out of the 13 states for Ambazonia. So that central command, all the ADF general from the Supreme Commander, General Efang, and all the general them for the 9 states, all them, that they inside that central command. That central command, that the liberation leadership on the ground for coordinate all the activities of the liberation on the ground for ADF. Number 2, through the central command, now for them all ADF forces, they work together for maintain unity on the ground. For make sure say fighter for one place, they need to use their power for intimidate the population, for abuse the population. So the central command now a place where they unify and unite forces for the ADF. All them with plenty. So for different places, they get unity, they get one voice, they get one mob. They inside one family. Now the central commander. Inside that central command, they share intelligence. So they know place where La Republique, if La Republique they make movement for this place, they share that intelligence for them. Inside central command, and for them, they will give instructions. So if forces for Upper Banyang, for Manu, they need backup for central command. Central command will talk say the forces for Manu, they don't go for operation. They need backup. Immediately, the central command it will activate all ADF units them across the 9 states. They will talk say we need 150 forces for give backup for our forces who they carry operation for Manu. Immediately, different units they will send soldier them, and immediately these forces they will get backup. If a population for a specific community it be threatened either by rogue or loose Ambazonian forces, even by an rogue ADF unit or La Republique, the central command it will get that message and it will mobilize forces within the central command and dispatch forces for go make sure say they stabilize the community, they stop the abuse of the population and give protection for the population. Now the purpose for central command is, now inside central command, they plan the war with the War Council. Secondly, for every state for Ambazonia with the ADF the ADF don't also create state central command. That means a local central command. I'll give example for the state of Bui. With all the plenty barracks and units where ADF get them for the state of Bui, they get their own central command where all the various commanders of the various ADF units and barracks within the state of Bui, all the generals for the state of Bui, then they will be inside Bui Central Command. It will help the forces for Bui for work together, for get unity, for get one spirit, for maintain that sense of one family. So that if problem come out between one unit and the next unit, they go fit and solve that problem inside themselves before that problem escalate. And if that problem it pass them for solve among themselves, the big central command now go come in for bring order, for bring discipline, and for solve that problem. All these things they help we. Now way they don't launch the liberation tax. The liberation tax are going to do a series of educational presentations for the Ambazonian people then about this liberation tax. All right. So for today, maybe we'll end the discussion for here because we don't almost reach 58 minutes, and our goal it been to do almost 45, but I don't talk a little bit longer. I apologize. Say we'll go a little bit longer than we planned for this broadcast. We don't go down to 58 minutes. We'll leave the discussion for here. We thank our parents and say when I don't take the time for listen. We want to be very hopeful. Every mommy, every family, every papa, your hope, your future, your destiny, that the Ambazonian Governing Council. That the only thing that way it remain for be a free people for our liberation. All right. May God bless you now. Take care. If you get any question, you reach out for me. If you get any concern or you get my phone number, you reach out for me. All right. Even for papa and mommy, them we already start to prepare their liberation tax. 10,000 for man picking them, 5,000 for woman them across the territory. You reach out for me. If you get a question how you fit pay your liberation tax, and then they give you a receipt, you always reach out for me. We will provide you with those answers. All right? Make you take care. Make you stay strong. We'll get so much more for talk about. There's so much more we'll be talking about. What did happen for inside the Republic? What did happen with poor BI government? The infighting, the economy. There is so much more we will be talking about the coming days. All right? Make you take care. We love you now. We get a good night. May God bless you now. I'll be with our brother, Lucas Asu. We're the spokesman for Ambazonian Governing Council. Good night.